Welcome, everybody, to the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation's Live Better series. I am Rob Girth. I'm the Director of Digital Media here at the Foundation. And today we're talking about wheelchair racing. And we're lucky enough to have an expert with us who you will meet in just one moment. But first, a little housekeeping. We are going to take question and answers. Well, we're going to take questions, and then hopefully we'll have the answers, is what I mean to say, at the end. And we'll do that either as a chat, using the chat feature, which you can see there on the screen, or you'll be able to actually call in and talk to our guests directly, so don't be shy. That's some of the best content we get is when people call in. So here is our operator, Scott, with those details. Scott.
Great, and if you'd like to call in and use the phone to answer, ask questions, call 1-800-931-1309. That's again, that 1-800-931-1309. And I'll turn it back to you.
Excellent. So let's meet our host for today, and that is Candace Cable. And Candace actually is a pioneer in the sport of wheelchair racing and a 12-time Paralympic medalist in 3 different sports. Candace, how are you doing today?
I am super, Rob. How about you?
I'm doing excellent. I mentioned before we went on the air, it's supposed to be 60 degrees. Well, depending on when you're listening to this, if you're listening to it in December of 2013, it's been snowy here in the Northeast, and it's going to be 60 degrees on Sunday, which is pretty exciting because I'm sick of the snow already.
Oh, yeah, you're bragging.
Well, go ahead, Candace. Take it from here.
Oh, sorry, Rob. I thought you had more.
No, I'm done. I'm done. That's it. It's all yours.
Okay. It's all mine. All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm grateful that you came by to catch our Live Better series on adaptive sports. Here we have the opportunity to spend some time exploring one of our sports, which is going to be wheelchair racing today, with our guest expert. Our intention is to expand your knowledge of the sport and other ways to, stay healthy with it, and then learn some tricks of the trade of how our guest experts stay motivated. And our guest expert today is Rafael Ibarra. And Rafael was born in East Los Angeles, California, and contracted polio in 1957 at the age of 18 months. He hit the LA roads wheelchair racing in 1983, and 1 year later he earned a spot on the 1984 Summer Paralympic track team and a gold medal in the 1988 Summer Paralympic 800 meters track race. On the roads, Rafi was, and still is, you'll hear, a force to be reckoned with. In those early days he won the 1988 Honolulu Marathon and the 1989 U.S. 10K National Championship, which I think that was the year I might have won that 10K too. More recently, he placed first in the Masters Georgia ING Marathon and 8th in the World Masters 10K. But Rafael is a person who is skilled in multiple disciplines. And he, I would say, is a true Renaissance man because he not only competes in wheelchair racing, he gets out there in hand cycle races, becoming the 2008 USA Road Racing National Champion. He water skis, he plays tennis, and he stays active by having a really good time with family and friends. Rafael is also a mentor, a businessman, and a father. He consistently contributes his time and resources to guiding youth with disabilities in the finer arts of recreation at Ironwood Springs Ranch in Minnesota, as well as with local organizations. Rafael is an assistive technology professional for the Genesis Rehab and lives with his son, Evan, in Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome, Rafael.
Hey there, Candace.
So glad to have you here.
Great to be with you, Candace. Great to be with you and to be on the Live Better series.
Yes, this is a series that the Reeve Foundation put together to just really help introduce people to a lot of different things, and we have several programs, and this one is about adaptive sport. So I want to know just a little bit about the work that you do. Assistive technology professional, what is that?
Assistive technology professional is a designation that both Medicare and many Medicaids and private insurance want when someone is getting a power wheelchair or an ultra lightweight manual wheelchair. We work closely with the doctor, the therapist, and the family and the funding source to come up with the best product, and we handle all the paperwork and make sure we properly fit and educate the consumer on their new product, whether it be a power chair or a manual chair.
Now you said fit. So do you work with seating, proper seating?
Proper seating, yes, like with cushions and helping people, get the best. It depends on their disability, so that they get the best functional use that they can, whether it be in a manual wheelchair or a power wheelchair. So yes, we work very closely with therapists on, providing the best kind of cushion, the best kind of angle for their body and their disability, and access to their, wheels for propelling and being the best they can be while they're using the wheelchair.
So it sounds like it's a pretty labor-intensive process and one that has multiple layers to it. Is that what I'm hearing from you, that you'll probably see a person several times to make sure you get it right?
Yes, correct. We, obviously everything starts with them wanting or having a desire and a need for a new chair, or if they're just a newly injured patient. The doctor starts everything, and we work with the therapist. We, do a preliminary analysis and evaluation, and then we will try them in different equipment, and then we work up a loaner for them to try and use, and then we do a home evaluation. And all this time we're working in the background, gathering information from the doctors. It seems to be more and more documentation every year that the insurance companies are requiring. And then when we finally get the product in, we will deliver it, oftentimes with the therapist or at their home, and we do once again, getting them properly seated so that their equipment fits to the best of their needs.
And I've noticed, personally for my, with my own chairs throughout the years of almost 40 years of using a wheelchair for mobility, is that my body's changed. And I've had some different needs, basically, in the changes. And so is that something that you also work with people on?
Correct, yes. The insurance companies want them to have these chairs now for about 5 years. So, and I remind them that if they're new to this new chair, that we're going to start you off and not get as aggressive with your positioning, meaning your wheels and something else. And as their body changes and they get more comfortable, or if it's a progressive disease, if they lose function, then please call us and we will come out to do another analysis and do some modifications and changes. And if new equipment is needed because it's a progressive disease, then we will, obviously meet with the therapist and get the doctor's recommendation for those changes. But yes, I agree with you that people have to keep that in mind, that unlike you, over the years, 30 plus years, almost every chair I get, I do something different and try something new and a new position to try to enhance my independence and my mobility. Or, when my son was very young, I sat closer lower to the ground because I wanted to be able to pick him up easily and put him down. And as he's growing up, I raised my seat back up so that I could sit taller and reach things in cabinets. So different positions, for different times.
Wow, that is great insight, especially for, anyone who is thinking about having children, is that they should put some thought into making some changes in their everyday wheelchair so that they can, be the best they can be in, in that first growing years of when a child's a toddler.
Yes, and I've worked with many young, women who have had, when they're having a child, and as you know, the belly will grow, so your body will change a little bit there. So you want to maybe open up your seat to back angle a little bit and make some adjustments. So that is something most of all the lightweights have that capacity for change and modification and changing, and many times you don't need any special equipment. You just have to call your supplier and hope that they are knowledgeable on some of these changes, and they can help you with your position. And then once like I said, the child comes and your needs change, you can go back to those positions or change them. A lot of these chairs are made to be adaptable and change with you.
So that's great. That's great information, and I want to know, how does someone find someone like yourself, an assistive technology professional?
Well, great. There's an organization called NARTS, NRRTS, National Rehab Registry for. You got me on a spot here. It'll come to me in a second. But NARTS is a national organization, and ATPs are registered with this organization, and we've got our own code of ethics and follow rules and guidelines for making sure that we take care of the patient and their needs, and the funding sources, that everyone is collaborating together. So every state has a listing of NARTS registered ATPs, and I would certainly go to that site to start with, and then I'd ask if there's a couple in your city. I would start the process by asking a few questions on, do they use a therapist? And if they don't use a physical and occupational therapist, I'd be very leery, because you definitely want to have their input in the positioning process and in that teamwork, and that's what the organization really enhances, is that we work as a team. And if there's anybody else that's involved. So.
Wow, thank you, Rafael. And we'll get that resource from you after the webcast, and we'll put that up on our resource page. Well, let's get started about you growing up as as a toddler contracting polio. What was it like for you growing up in Los Angeles? At that time with polio.
Well, let me first correct something, and maybe I didn't give you the right information. I was actually born in Mexico. I was born in Mexico. Yes, I was. So that's the other story stuff. I was born in Mexico in 1955, and I in the rural part of the country, and I missed out on the polio vaccination. So it wasn't until my father, who had done some migrant work here in the United States, realized that we needed better medical treatment. So he started the paperwork, and we got our green cards in 1961 and came to California. So, and I grew up in East LA since I was 6 years old. Yeah, that's a picture of me there with my first set of braces, I think, when I got here, and was able to stand up and actually walk with crutches and braces for the first time.
Well, I have to say, the look on your face is one I'm used to seeing from you, as a determined look of, like, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to figure out how this works, because through the years that I've known you with wheelchair racing, and then beyond that, and you always were a person that was driven to be the best that you could possibly be. How did you stay active as a child with braces like this, and when did you first get a wheelchair?
Well, I was pretty. I guess I was pretty fortunate that, and back then, when I started school, they bused us to special schools for the disabled. And I know there's always been controversy. Now they're integrated, which I think is great, but I think that there's something lost there, because the school that I went to, the first elementary school, Huntington Park, it was everyone had some kind of a disability, whether they were in a wheelchair, they visually impaired, something. So, and because of that, things were modified for us so that we could participate in some kind of school athletics like most kids growing up. So that was, I guess, the first part that I was included, and we were all included, and we all adapted to each other's disabilities. And I actually, during that process, during that time, it wasn't until I got into high school, Whitney High School, in Los Angeles, that I started actually doing, organized sports, because they had a basketball team. We went out and played softball, and once again, everybody at that high school had some form of disability. So it made, for integrating into a sport, we just figured out, okay, how do we play tetherball? So, and it was, they had a team, and they also had some great coaches that, were tied into the Paralympic movement and the National Wheelchair Games, and they started instilling that in us very early that, you guys can compete and you can do some of these great sports. So that was my first inclusion into wheelchair sports.
Well, and Whitney High School was one of the premier high schools in the Los Angeles area for adaptive physical education. I remember so many kids, meeting so many kids, and then young adults coming out of there.
Yes, they did a real good job. It was, they definitely emphasized education, academics, but they also, you could earn your sweater, per se, on a basketball team, or, cheerleading, or, a lot of different events. And yes, you're right, they had track and field, and they put a team together almost every year and took them to the Nationals, to a lot of your different games. And I remember going to my first California games, the Cal games, and I just went because it was going to be a good, fun, socializing event. Didn't really think I'd be that competitive, and I think that sort of got me first involved with track. I remember seeing some of the racers and thinking one day I'd like to do that, but basketball was still my number one sport. I didn't get into wheelchair racing until after, about almost 10 years after I got out of high school, is when I first got into my true racing chair.
Well, so this is a picture of what wheelchair racing looks like now. But back when you were first getting into the chairs, and maybe just a little bit later, these were some of the first racing chairs. Did you try one of those that was in the upper left there, the modified Everest and Jennings chair, or was it more one of the styles that was on the right?
Well, the first time I ever tried one was probably not even as fancy as that top one on the left there. I remember doing a 100-meter dash in the Cal Games, and they were just strictly the typical wheelchair, and I remember thinking to myself, I could run faster with my crutches and braces than I could go in that wheelchair. So, it was quite sad. I'm going, I'm not doing this again. So I stayed away. I remember those years, and when I finally did give it a try again in 1983, it was one of the ones on the right here there that I think that was Brad Parks was in that chair, and
right.
That was like my first time I got into a racing chair in the Casa Colina program with Dave Kiley's group. So then it's like, oh, this is now it's getting faster. Yes, I could do this.
Well, and then it started to evolve where there was a bigger front wheel. Everybody was sitting in a few different positions, and did you ever have any? I mean, that's you on the right there with the 3-wheel chair, but did you ever have one of those 4-wheel chairs where the steering was being invented?
Oh yes, yeah. You definitely. We were probably. I remember when we started racing, and they wouldn't let us have compensators. Do you recall those years? And it was the 4-wheelers, and it was pretty hard to keep the wheels from fluttering. Yes, I did had many 4-wheelers, and started with I think Jerry Smith, and then the chair, and and then Bob Hall, and then in 1988, on the right there, those we were some of the first to actually sport a three-wheeler. So.
Right, and tell us a little bit about the three-wheeler. Why did the chair go from 4 to 3?
I think it was just the whole desire to go faster and to be lighter, and to, as you can see on that on the left side there, where it says "Ride the Future." When you've got that four-wheeler there, and you run side by side with somebody, and if you're on a track meet and you're trying to cut over, you've got to have a lot of space. And with the three-wheelers, it's easier to pop that front end and move it around and cut in and cut out. And when you have a lighter chair, it's easier to accelerate. So a lot of different reasons that we started playing with the three-wheelers, and mostly it was because it would be lighter, one less wheel, one less drag, and we could be faster. And as it turned out, definitely the three-wheelers stuck around, and the four-wheelers sort of went by the wayside as far as racing chairs.
Right. And as you said about that Compensator, here we have a couple of pictures that showed some of the original Compensators. Now, what exactly did the Compensator do?
Well, if you have a chair down, you look at your everyday chair. If you look down, you got your two wheels, and they're sort of independent. So think about if you ever go down a ramp really fast and your wheels start to get a little bit of a wobble. Imagine going 20 to 25 miles an hour down a hill, and it starts to get a little bit dicey. So, and if you're turning, like if you're turning left or on a track here, and you had to have two knobs to see where Jim Martinson, that picture number 94, he's holding on to both of them, and he's turning those, and it allowed you to not have to use two arms to turn, because you had a Compensator tied the two wheels together, so if you turn one, the other one turned with it and turned right. And if you look at cars, they're linked that way together, so when you turn one wheel, they both turn at the same time. So that made us once again faster, but more importantly, I think safer, and it made it easier to go around the track, which we were trying to get around that track a lot faster.
And we would set those for the turn in the track, and then also set them for the straightaway in the track, so that it would hold that turn. And I remember the change in classification from the addition of the Compensators, so that they could, originally there were 8 classes in wheelchair track racing, and now there's only 4. And it was one of the things that it did was help combine the classes so that we were more able. For Jim, without his legs, he's really light, and he has the ability to move the front end around pretty easily by just kind of hopping it. But with someone who's paralyzed, being able to do that was more challenging, and that Compensator really helped combine the classes more, so there was more competition, right?
Yes, correct. You're very right. That was very true, because around the corners, with that front end with the 4 wheels, it was quite heavy and hard to make that turn. But if you, like Jim, didn't have that weight in front of you, you could just, and plus he had his full abdominals and back muscles, so that he could hip it and lift it and sort of turn it, where someone like yourself or I had to work a lot harder to try to get there. So having the Compensator, yes, you're right, allowed us to keep our arms, our hands on the hand rims, and just by hitting that Compensator, it turned the wheels ever so slightly. So going around the turn made it, easier, and gave us, more power, so we didn't have to stay on the front steering devices to get around that turn.
Well, and this is what they look like now. Can you just kind of walk us through what we're looking at here? Like, where's the steering? Where's that compensator? And I see there's a brake there.
Yeah, there's up here, right here on this picture here. This is the steering. This is the actual. By either pushing this handle this way, it'll steer the wheel towards this way. And then right here, you can barely see it here. These are the compensators, and these are the track stops that you mentioned. By adjusting this bolt in or out, by just hitting this lever here, which is the same lever down here, that rotates this spring-loaded compensator that's attached to the front fork, and that allows that front wheel to turn either right or left, depending on where you have it. So going into the turn, you would adjust this in, so hit the left side, and you go around the turn, and when you're coming out of the turn, you would hit the right side, and that would point the wheel straight down the track. And you can see, and these handles are very rarely used except for going around, going down a hill, or if you have to make a quick turn, because on the track, the longer you keep your hands on the hand rims, the more contact you have, the faster you're going to go. So the compensator allowed us to do that around the turn by simply hitting this side. You were able to maintain your arms and hands on those push rims for longer and not have to worry about falling out of your lane or going into the track.
Yeah, and so, wow, just you could go so fast around the corners with all that centrifugal force that wanted to throw you out. It sounds like the compensator actually helped keep you in your lane and I would say avoided crashes.
Yes. Very true, yes. Because before then, you're right, you had the wobbly wheels and people who didn't have great control, and so you would have many more accidents. And, not that the accidents stopped when we got the compensator, because now we're going a lot faster, and so, with the speed, you're going to have some, and people overzealous to get in front of you, you were going to have some accidents. But, yes, it definitely decreased the amount of plasters we made, gave us a little bit of I wouldn't say advantage, but gave us an equal footing with the amputees that we could maneuver that front end with having the 3 wheels instead of 4, and then the compensator gave us that extra equilibrium for competition.
So on the track, that's one thing, but on the road, how does the compensator work for the crown of the road and the adjustment of being able to go straight?
Yeah, as you're well aware, and if most people have been on a street or pushing down the street, you notice that there's a crown on the road so that the water can drain, and when it rains. So if you didn't have a compensator, you found yourself that you were always veering towards the curb to go down. So once again, you would have to use the right side to keep you away from going down there. By setting that compensator, you can keep it, you can adjust the wheel a little bit to the left so that if there's a deep crown, you can continue to push both arms and maintain that straight line and not have gravity take you down into the curb.
Well, that sounds like a lot of energy isn't going to be wasted by trying to keep yourself from turning in one direction. Now this is, I found a side view of the racing chair and what the compensator looks like. Just a little bit more about the compensator. Is there a spring inside of that? How does that work?
Yes, in the early days of the compensator, if you recall, we used bungee cords so that they would, give and take. So, and then finally, a few smart people, engineering, degrees and so forth, started. There's a spring loaded in here, and this part here goes. I don't have my marker with you. I thought I had the marker. There it is. This part here, actually, this is attached to the fork. and then the other end is attached to that lever that will move it to the right or left. And inside here, yes, they're spring-loaded, and this part goes in and out depending on whether you're going right or left. And that can be adjusted by having this nut, and there's a nut here. So there's a couple different adjustments that one can make to get that just right for your length and for the type of racing you're doing. Some people like to have a really stiff front end here, so they run it tighter. Some people like to have it further out so that it's a little more play, and that's personal preferences and how comfortable you feel. And probably more importantly on the downhills is where you really notice those subtle differences. And right here, this is some of the newer chairs that have the steering. Instead of having two out there, they've got a single lever that goes all the way back here, and that way you can get more aerodynamic and have a tuck than you could in the previous pictures.
Got it. Okay. So moving on, in some of the pictures I saw that there's also gloves that people use, and I grabbed a couple pictures of 3 different styles. One, the type of gloves that from originally were ones that we all made, and I want you to talk a little bit about that. Then there are the harness gloves, which are available, and then the customized hard plastic gloves that so many of the racers are using. Let's talk a little bit about in the picture, the color picture there of you and Craig and your coach. What were those gloves made of?
These gloves, you can get a decent view here with Kevin here. Kevin, these are batting gloves, baseball batting gloves. And we would take these leather batting gloves and start there and then build them up. And you notice here we would build up on the thumb and the forefinger and sometimes the middle finger, and we would use, in the beginning a lot of athletic tape. And what that gave us was, the capacity to hit that push ring here very hard without, getting blisters and hurting our fingers. And allows, this eventually over time they became nice and hard and gave you an extra punch. But if you got them wet or periodically you had to always continue to upgrade them and use them, and then you got to start all over again. Then right about in 1987, 88, I think. With the help of Craig Blanchett, he was up living in Oregon and working very closely with Nike, and Deb Harness was making shoes for some of the top athletes in the world. And Craig went to go see her, as he was sponsored by Nike, and he started saying, can we use some of the rubberized components in the shoes to make some gloves? So there began the harness gloves, and what you see a lot of people using now, and in my opinion still one of the easiest ways to get a new person pushing to success. By these, you'll notice here there's a Velcro strap that helps you keep a fist so that you can once again punch the hand rim, because a lot of people think that we're holding the hand rim, but if you think about it, once you get a wheel going, it's easier just to keep hitting it to keep the momentum going, and that's what these gloves actually let you do. But once again, they restrict you. They had a Velcro, you had to open it, and it was a little harder to steer. And people started playing with something lighter, like these over here now, and they're made out of the same kind of material that they make like AFOs and braces. It's plastic that pellets and sheets that you actually warm up in water and form to your fingers and to your hands. And you'll notice here that this person here has most of his fingers are free, and they're lighter, and they actually are harder. And once you put the rubberized coating on top, they actually last longer, and it gives you a little more freedom on your steering. And it once again has increased, I think, the speed overall of the racing, because you just keep using the technology of the chair and now the technology of the glove to get you to that next level. And you're also able to put different rubberized products that help you in the rain. So the rain is not one of your allies in racing, because these hand rims here become very slippery. And if you have more traction, you're able to push through the rain and maintain your speed and hopefully win some races.
Now, those the harness gloves and the custom-made gloves, they look like they would work for someone who has hand involvement. Possibly someone that has quadriplegia, where it would be challenging to get their fingers into all the areas of fingered gloves, like the original batting gloves. Looks like the harness gloves and the custom-made gloves might work well for them. Have you ever seen anybody who has hand involvement using any of those?
Oh yes, I mean that's the other thing is that these were good for pairs and so forth, but when these gloves started coming around, I think at the same time that Craig was helping them develop these, and there was a quadriplegic who was starting to push with the back of his hand, the back of the palm there, and that's where these came in really great. And because they had the wrist, you can get a wrist attachment here that went higher for quadriplegic who has limited wrist motion and finger motion. They could actually Velcro this part onto here, and it gave you a fist and made it more like a para that you could punch it, and this helped support your wrist. So yes, it gave quadriplegics a great opportunity. Once they had lower hand getting the gloves in, that their speed started going up tremendously, because they were able to now use what muscle they had and compensate for the ones that they did not have.
Well, push rings. Now, the push rings, as you said, you're actually punching them. What are the push rings made of?
They're made out of aluminum, lightweight aluminum, and they're tubular. And then they have these to attach them. The attachments for attaching them to the spokes of the wheel, or here on this particular one, it's a carbon fiber. So there's preset drilled hose that it attaches to. But the diameter is like 3/8. They're very small. You want to keep them light once again, and then they usually right after you have them mounted, we would put black tape on there. It's electrician's tape so that you get that little tackiness, and then we started playing around with different materials, and now they use sort of like a tire. They've taken, if you can imagine, a tire and sort of opened it up, sew up, and that has tread, and they glue it on to the hand rim so that it gives you a lot of mileage, and you don't have to replace them, but maybe every 6 months to a year. I think I've had these right here in this chair for like 3 years. But it gives you an added cushion, but more importantly, it gives you an adhesive that gives you a little bit of traction. So with the glove, as we said, we're not really grabbing the hand rim, we're just hitting it, and it gives us an opportunity not to have that slippage. So, and you're right, and you notice how large the hand rim is on this one here. It's like almost 15-inch, and some of these are a lot smaller. And we've come a long way, and that's, once again, personal preferences and body type and how you position in the chair will dictate what kind of hand rim you should be using to optimize your position.
And how would someone go about deciding on the size of hand rim? I know you said body position, but does the length of the arm or any of that have to do with deciding on the size of the hand rim or strength? any of that?
All those come into play. You're right, Candace. You notice that you want to be able to, most people are pushing like maybe from here and all the way to, we call it like 5 or 6 o'clock, and then we're not following the hand rim all the way around it. It looks like we are, but we're actually pounding through here and getting most of our strength right from here through 6 o'clock. So yes, you want to be able to reach the bottom of the hand rim and still have a little bit of a bend in your elbow. Because if you don't, then you're hyperextending and you're going to do damage to your elbow and shoulders. So yeah, it's important to be able to reach the top of the hand rim and also the bottom of the hand rim. So if you have a hand rim that's too large and you're able to hit the top but can't get to the bottom, then you have to work with a smaller hand rim. So you find that, and you see where my shoulder is here compared to the wheel. You want to be in front of the hand rim, your shoulder in front of the hand rim in this position here. So if you're in this position, and you notice that in the more upright position, that takes a little bit of a different position where the hand rim is and the size of your hand rim. I wish there was an easy way to say, well, yeah, you're a T10 and you're 5'10", you should have this. But and there's no great formula until you get into the chair and you see what you can tolerate and how your stroke. And then even then, it's still, as you well know, it changes quite a bit depending on the type of race. If you've got a hilly situation, you may go to a larger hand rim. So it's
right. And as you said, what you can tolerate, because people sit differently in the chairs and the wheels and this, for instance, this hand rim looks like it's almost, my guess would be 18 inches. It looks so big.
It does.
It does. It looks really big. This is a picture of Carlos Melita's racing chair, and the different types of wheels. I was really intrigued by the combination of the spokes and the carbon wheel. And I'd like to know from you, because in the last picture we saw the disc and then we just saw the spoked wheels, and now we have the carbon and the spoke combination, which there's a variety of wheels like that now. Up in the corner there's a cross in the wheel, and then there's the disc, and then the part spokes, part carbon. What are your thoughts on these different types of wheels, and is it one more effective than the other?
I think some of that is two things. One is some personal preferences, and also how much money you got. Yes.
Okay, it's a cost. It's a cost-effective thing also. So can you tell us the difference in price?
Yeah, these are your standard spoke wheels, which are pretty standard on most chairs, and they're probably your least costly option. Once again, more spokes, then you've got the weight, and we're always trying to get the lightest wheels and the most aerodynamic wheels. And so those are going to be your probably least aerodynamic and heavier wheels, but they're also the least costly. And then you've got a couple different versions. This is a complete carbon fiber wheel here, which is pretty pricey. I think their set may go for a bit. Each one of these goes for about maybe $1,800. And the positives is that you have aerodynamics. It's a lighter wheel, and it's a stiffer wheel, so you have less flex in it. A few people have tried this, 4-spoke, which is also their carbon fiber blend. And the one that you saw earlier down that Carlos Melita had is this combination of spokes with a carbon fiber outer shell that it gives you sort of the best of both worlds. A lot of people are saying that, well, maybe we need to be going back to spokes and you can still get a nice stiff wheel with spokes, but then having the aerodynamics of the combination of the carbon makes it both lightweight and stiff. But once again, everyone seems to be playing with different options, and a lot of it, can be associated with cost. But they're looking for that most aerodynamic and the stiffest wheel possible, so that when you're punching those hand rims there, you're not getting any flex in the wheel, because if you're getting flex, that means that you're losing energy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you notice in the front wheels, front wheels the same way too. That this is a carbon fiber, partial carbon fiber with some spokes there.
Well, okay, so aerodynamics. Here we have the racing chair from the side again. As you said, with the way people sit, show us where with the seat and the cage there. Lots of people are sitting where you can't see their feet at all, and then there are some people that sit with their feet out front. Is that again a personal preference?
I think it is. I think more than personal preference, if can you tolerate it? Are you able to get in a position where they're tucked, which means that your bottom is basically right at this level here, and then your knees are coming out, and then they bend back, and they actually sit right above the frame here, and your feet are out in the back. So and then the torso is out forward, and that's called with knees back. And you'll see that most of the top racers in the world are racing that way, and it does take a while to get used to. If you have any sensation, it definitely does not feel that great getting the first couple times. And you'll see a lot of people that have their feet out here, so they'll sit here, the bottom is still here, their knees are out here, and then their legs come just to out here, and they're using some kind of a strap or a foot plate that is mounted here. And those individuals usually find that they cannot tolerate sitting with their knees back, and they don't have either the balance. So it's more, I think it's because of your disability rather than personal preference. Okay,
all right. And so helmets are a piece of the equation now on the track and on the road.
Yes, I think they realized that the speeds that we were hitting, back in the day, we were, hitting it, close to hit 18 to 20, and now they're certainly a lot faster than that. And with accidents, you want to protect that noggin there, because the chair will protect the rest of your body and except your arms and so forth, but everything else is in this cage and the wheels. But then, your head was susceptible, for concussions and other problems. So they realized that, bicyclists wear helmets for a reason, and they started implementing that for us. And I knew that we had a lot of feedback in the beginning. Oh, they make my head hot. They do this, but a lot of research has gone into it that actually keeps your head cooler if you do wear a helmet versus not having one, because of the vents that they have here. So. But certainly a lot safer. So I know that I personally have been happy to have had my helmet the few times that I've hit the pavement. So.
Well, and the stroke is another piece of the equation in learning how to do it. And we have a couple slides that we can move through, and feel free to move the slide yourself. There's 2 more slides past this to kind of see the progression of the stroke, where it looks like the very beginning. Is your body actually lifting up off the knees?
Yes, yes. You do have a little bit of uplift here. This is, I think, Tatiana, and you see that she's ready to hit that hand rim at the top of the hand rim there. So she's raised up, and she wants to get there full. If you're able to move your body, you get your chest and your back all into that push, and then you notice this individual back here, they're finishing their stroke, and they're coming back off the back, and they're probably down because they've just finished their stroke. So let's see what these others. How do I get this? Oh. Let's try and move one of the other slides.
There we go. I got it.
Okay. Yeah. Here's this is I believe it's a quadriplegic, and he's further down, and he may not be able to use his body to get back up because he doesn't have the stomach and so forth to get up there. The stroke starts here and comes off the back. and you notice these individuals. I remember I said earlier you wanted to have your shoulder in front of the hand rim, so that you can start here and finish at the bottom. You don't want to be too far forward because then you're reaching back, and you want to utilize your back, your shoulder, where you get most of your power is going to be right through here, where he's starting the stroke here. But this is right about 2 o'clock is where he'll get from 2 o'clock to 5 is where he's going to get most of his power, and then he'll let the arms flotate up, and the momentum taken back, and then he'll come right back and hit it here. And that part, as you well know, again, is it takes a while to get that right stroke, and finesse it. And the quicker you can get there, the faster you become. Here's a good
and it
picture.
Really looks like. Yeah, absolutely, and it really looks like the shoulder is at the very front edge of the wheel.
Yes, exactly. You want to keep it from between here and here, so that you're right. Because when you reach, he's coming here, he's going to hit here, and he wants to be able to finish at the bottom and still have that power stroke there, and then be able to steer. And
right here. So who could play? This is one of the top competitors in the T1 class, which is the quadriplegic class, and I put in the IPC International Paralympic Committee classification of the T1 through T51 to T54, and really it sounds like the 5-1s and the 5-2s are the only quadriplegic class that is still a part of wheelchair racing, and then the 5-3s and the 5-4s are paraplegics and amputees. Is that what you're seeing now? Is pretty much the way the classes are breaking down?
Yes. As you well mentioned earlier, when you started, they had 8 classes, and then when I started, we had 5 classes. And it's always been a challenge. Remember 1988 when we were in Seoul, they've been wanting to eliminate some of the classes to make the numbers less for the Paralympics. And if you have less competitors in your class, those are being sort of phased out. And that is a pity because there's as you well know, we've had a lot of great competitors in all the classes. And
right.
But it becomes a financial thing that they're building a team and trying to put how many classes. When you say I'm the 100-meter champion, which class? Yeah, 5 different classes. They go, I thought you were the champion. No, he was a champion.
You can be a little confusing. Classification is always evolving. I mean, that is one of the pieces that is a part of Paralympic sport and adaptive sport is that classification is seeking constantly to include the most people in a single class so that it's a little less confusing about how many gold medalists there are in the 100 meters. And of the events, there's wheelchair racing on the track and on the road, and the distances are pretty much the same as a runner, right?
Yes, correct, yes. And you notice that if you look at our times, the 100-meter, 200, the runners certainly still have an advantage because of the acceleration and quickness off the line. But after the 200 meters, we start to catch up, and actually, fastest wheelchair racers are actually going a lot faster in those distances than the best Olympians.
Right. Once a wheelchair racer gets up to speed. Well, our time is starting to wind down, and I want to ask you a little bit about cost. I found this online, a $10,000 full carbon wheelchair. And then I heard about the motivation chair out of the United Kingdom that the IPC has been talking about with their Agitos Foundation, where for $1,000 you have a piece of equipment like this that had some pretty durable looking wheels and pretty much seating about the same way that you were talking about. You can put your feet in the front or underneath. What, between these two, $10,000 and $1,000, do you think it would cost someone to be able to get started in wheelchair road racing and track?
Oh, I think that this $1,000 racing wheelchair is a great idea because you would get more people involved. Right now, I think I know they start about here in the U.S. about $1,800. So it can be very restrictive, especially if you don't know about fitting, because these are, as you well know, they're fitted very closely to your body. And unlike a standard wheelchair, that you could maybe have an inch of fudge room, in a racing chair, you really can't have that. You really want it to fit you just like you do a running shoe. So, my good friend of mine, Scott Hollenbeck, and I have always talked about that they need to come up with some kind of a program chair where you can get people involved and you can adjust it, make it adjustable easy, so that they can figure out how they want to sit and then go to the next chair. So that has yet to be developed, but I like this $1,000 racing chair because that makes it very affordable for someone to get in, especially for a lot of programs. Kids who are always growing, this doesn't make it prohibitive like that $10,000 chair.
Right, and honestly, I think that this chair does have a little bit of adjustability to it that, mostly in the seating part, but that allows people to be able to make those adaptations, and then eventually, if they're serious about the sport, to be able to move on to something in between the, $1,000 and $10,000. Well, Rocky, I feel like I just rushed you going through this, and I just know I could spend another hour with you talking about this sport, and I so appreciate you being a part of our webcast today about adaptive sports and the sport of wheelchair racing. You're a wealth of knowledge, and we didn't even tap into it. I just can't wait to eventually have you back or write a blog or something to get more information from you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Candace. And I just one final little note that I'll leave is that, even you don't have to have a racing chair to join. Go out to your local 5K, your 1 mile run, or your 10K. You don't have to have a fancy racing chair or a bike. I do it often in my local races with my everyday chair, with my son and friends, and just to get in the community to get some exercise and fitness. And then see if you like it. Then you can move up to the next level. But there's no reason you can't use your everyday chair to join in your local community races. And I encourage people to do that. It's a great way to get involved and to get fit.
Thank you. Thank you for that point, Rafael, because I think that's an important piece to the equation that anybody can get started. It doesn't take fancy equipment. You can go out in your everyday chair. You're absolutely right. Thank you.
Yeah, my first 5K was in my everyday chair, and boy, it was long and hard, but I felt good satisfaction. I wasn't the last one, so I beat a couple walkers.
Yeah, nice. Well, I think Scott or Rob is going to jump on with a little housekeeping.
I will jump on and tell everybody that the information that Candace has promised will be at ChristopherReeve.org/sports, ChristopherReeve.org/sports. And remind everyone that Candace has a wonderful blog along with some other folks at ChristopherReeve.org/lifeafterparalysis. ChristopherReeve.org/lifeafterparalysis. Wonderful show. Great stuff. Thank you both.
Oh,
thank you guys
you're
very
welcome.
much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for listening.